Okay, let's proceed. We are supposed to, we have done the left hand side whereby you are differentiating these partial p's here, and the imaginary was giving us partial p's, but the real is giving us the partial q's. For the right hand side, you will be differentiating these partial q's and the imaginary will be the partial q's, but negative of real, negative of real, negative of real will be partial p's. So this is a negative real and this is imaginary. This is imaginary, this is negative real. So hapa ni imaginary, hapa ni real. So to begin with, if you want partial qi over partial vk, generally is negative of vi. This is the i's here. Vi conjugate into yik angle del k. The angle of del k, you can see we only have one voltage here, which is vi, and then we don't have vk here. We have the angle of vk instead, which for first iteration delta ik is 0, so it's just like you'll just be having yik here, so you'll be having negative v1 conjugate into yik because del k is 0. For example, if you're to get partial q2 partial v2, then we have these two is the guide, so you'll have, let me change this pen to blue. So you will have this partial q2 partial v3, so you will have negative v2 conjugate, 2 is here, into y23, 2 is here, 3 is here, y23 angle del 3, like we had said, there's no vk, you only pick the angle, so angle del 3, but for first iteration it's very simple because del 3 is 0. I'm only stressing on angle del 3 because for second iteration you'll be required to insert that angle. So as usual, you'll have the answer in rectangular form, p minus jq. So imaginary will give us partial q2 partial v3, partial q2 partial v3. Remember here on the right hand side you're dealing with v's, partial p partial v, but in the left hand side you're dealing with partial p's partial del. So that's the difference. This one are dealing a voltage, we're gonna deal in a del. So because we're dealing a voltage, we do for this, and then we get this. Imaginary is this is negative real. So we are doing partial p2 partial v3. So partial q2 partial v3. So you do partial this one partial q2 partial v3 q2 v3, so that we can also get this one here partial p2 partial v3. So after doing this, the imaginary is that, but to get this partial p2 partial v3, it's just negative that the real you get here, negative the real. So as usual, like you were saying, you'll get p minus jq. Imaginary is partial q2 partial v3, but to get partial p2 partial v3, it is negative of the real, since the real part is p. The real, which is p here, is negative of partial p2 partial v3. So that means that partial p2 partial v3 is negative real. So that on the right hand side, when you'll be doing these ones, to get this will be negative of the real for all of them. Negative real, this is just imaginary the way it is. So you already found two, this one and this one. We can proceed to the next one. Partial Q3, partial V2. 3 is here, so we'll have a negative of V3 conjugate. You can see 3 is here. Into Y32, 3 is here, 2 is down here. Y32 and del2. For first iteration is very simple. Del2 is 0, so it's just Y32 into negative V3 conjugate. As usual, P minus JQ. Imaginary will give you this. Negative of real will give you this. That's like negative P. Negative of real will give you partial P3 now, partial V2. So you are looking for this one. You're looking for this. So in this case, you do for this one. Imaginary is this, but negative of the real. So see, we said negative real. So negative of real is this one. So that means you have solved 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's proceed. So if you want to get the one where we have partial Qi, partial Vi, there's this formula that we are using again is negative 2 Yii Vi, and this Vi you see is absolute. So that if it is 1 at an angle 20, just use 1. Absolute 1, leave the angle. The angle will be used this side. Summation of Vk at an angle del I, because it should be negative. Okay, let's do for partial Q2, partial V2. This one here. Remember it is 2 and 2, so we'll have minus 2 Y22 V2, and V2 you can see this V2 is absolute, meaning you don't put the angle there, don't use the angle there. So absolute, but for first iteration is just 0, is 1 angle 0. So absolute minus 1 angle del 2. So we are using V2 absolute so that we use the angle here, and the angle is conjugated. That's why 1 at an angle negative del 2. That's why I use absolute, so that the angle is used on this side as it is conjugated 1 at an angle negative del 2. Then you have the summation of Yik Vk. So this is Y21 V1 plus Y23 V3. The condition is I is equals to K. I is not equals to K, sorry. Then as usual we have P minus JQ. This is real, this is imaginary. Imaginary will just give us that straight away. Then negative of real will give us partial P2, partial V2. So we'll just come in here. You want this partial PQ2. Q2 is here and V2. This one is imaginary. So to get this, just negative of real, like we have written here. Negative of the real. Same to this partial Q3, partial V3. Partial Q3, partial V3 is negative 2, Y33 V3. So because we have 3 here, so 2 Y33 V3. Remember this is absolute minus 1 at an angle negative del 3. So we are using absolute so that the angle is used in the next after the negative sign here. So minus 1 at an angle negative del 3, Y31 V1 plus Y32 V2. So that if you do that again, P minus JQ, imaginary will give us that straight away, negative real will give us partial P3. So this is partial P3, yeah, partial P3, partial V3. So that you finish this by getting this imaginary and this is real. So it's just like that. So we can now do a proof with the class example. So the class example we did, and the Y bus matrix was this here. So we want to get partial P2, partial del 2. Like we had said, it is V2, 2 is here. V2 conjugate Y21 V1 plus Y23 V3. Remember, I is not equals to K, so Y22 V2 is not used. Because 1 angle 0, because kama iko na angle yenye iko utaweka negated, conjugate. 1 angle 0 into y1 is this. v1 is 1.05 plus v3 is 1, and then 3 is negative 8 plus j16. You'll get this negative 29 plus j58. So you just want to get this partial p2 partial del 2. Partial p2 partial del 2 is the imaginary, is just 58. You just pick 58. Then it will give the other values of partial q2 partial del 2 is negative 29. So that already, you already found this and this. Let me put it well. So that already, you already found this and this. You have saved time and pages and space. Then we go to partial p3 partial del 3. Again, it is positive v3 conjugate into y31 v1 plus y32 v2. Remember, this condition has to be obeyed. I is what equals to k, because it's 1 and 0 into v1 is 1.05, y31 is this, y32 is this, and you get real and imaginary. Imaginary will give you this partial p3 partial del 3, and real will give you this. So you just find yourself solving this one and this. So already you have two answers there. 1 2 3 4 5. 1 2 3 4. So you have already found 4. Again, now you want to get partial p3 partial del 2. So these ones are negative. The ones that have the partial pi over partial del k starts with a negative sign before you get that conjugate of vi. Yeah. So negative of v3 conjugate y3, you can see it's very easy. You have 3 here and you have 2 here. Let me double pair. So you have 3 here and you have 2 here. So it's just 3 to y32 negative v3 conjugate negative of 1 equals 0 in this, which is 8 minus j16. Again, to get this partial p3 partial del 2, just the imaginary is just picking. This is 16 is this, and the curve 16. Then 8 is the real one, it's this. So you just come here, partial p3, this sharpata, then that is imaginary, then this is real, like we are written here. This is real. So we are remaining with this one and this, which you are getting in less than 2 minutes. This is partial p2 partial del 3. Again, this is 2 and this is 2. So this one is the guide. So v2 conjugate over equals negative v2 conjugate negative v2 conjugate into y2. 2 is up, 3 is down, 2 3. Then v3. Of course, negative is here. Negative 1 times 0. 1 times 0 into that. You get 8 minus j16. Imaginary already gives us that partial pq2 partial p2 partial l3, this one negative 16, and then the real one will give us this. So you will have solved that 8, those 8 values. So this one will give you imaginary and this is real. So we'll have solved 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 in no minute. Then having done that, we can now go to the right hand side. Remember, this is the left hand side, where you just do the ones for here. You do these ones for partial P. Remember, this is partial P over partial delta. This side is partial P over partial V. So for this one, the upper one here is upper one here is imaginary, then the lower one is real. But for the right hand side, which we are having, the right hand side, this is the real, negative real, and then this is imaginary. So if we're doing for this side, this one here, which is imaginary, and then this is real. So we started with easy ones, partial Q2. Remember, this is the right hand side, the one where it is partial P and a partial there V. Partial P, partial V. So the partial P Q2 partial V3 is negative of V2 to equal conjugate into Y23 at an angle del 3, but del 3 is equals to 0 for first iteration. So that's very easy. So it's 8 minus j 16, and like we have said, that is imaginary, picking with the sign negative 16. The real, which is this part, is negative of partial P2 partial V3, which is up there. So you will negate it, because we have said the values here are negative of the real. So you will negate it. So we'll have negative of 8. So that's why we'll have negative 8 here. So you'll already solve 2 in a twinkle of an eye. So you will have already solved the 2. So you'll have partial Q2, Q2 and partial V3, and it will give you this. So we'll already solve 2. Then we go to partial Q2. We've also solved this one here. This one by using this. So we go for the ones that are similar. It is a bit tricky. So we are still here. Partial Q3 partial V2 is negative V3 conjugate into Y32 at an angle del 2. Del 2 is 0 for first iteration. As usual, you'll get 8 minus j 16. The imaginary will give you this, obvious, take with the sign. Then this one, to get partial P3 is negative real, so negative 8. Negative 8. So we'll have already found this, the one I just ticked. This one and that. Time is saved there. Then we go for the ones that are these are last ones. Partial Qi, partial Vi. So the formula is negative 2 into Y22 V2. Remember, this is absolute value of V2. So that the angle is used here. Minus 1 at an angle negative del 2. Remember, it's negative of del 2 for this. But for this, it is just the angle of del K, positive. Negative del 2 into summations of I to 1v1 plus I to 3v3. I is not equals to K, that's why it's not, you don't have I is not equals to K. Del 2 is 0 for first iteration, so just have negative 2 into y to 2v2 minus this plus that, so we'll have negative 27 plus j54. Now we have said imaginary is direct partial Q2 partial V2, but for you to get partial P2 now, partial V2 is negative of the real, so negative of negative 27 is positive 27. So you just come here, You are looking for this using this. So this one is imaginary, but this one is negative. The real value negative 27 is positive 27. And the last one is this partial q3 partial v3 negative y33 v3. Remember, key is that it is absolute, so that you use the angle here. The angle is -1, angle negative del 3. Negative del 3 because it's a conjugate of this value, the angle of this, so it's 1 angle negative del 3 to y31 v1 plus y32 v2. Remember, del 3 is 0 for first direction sign effect. You just have negative 17.5 as J35. Imaginary is just picked the way it is. Then the partial P3 which is up there is the negative real because it falls here. So you'll get this imaginary and then this negative real. So we'll have solved this. We'll have formed the Jacobian matrix within a twinkle of an eye. Then you come and write them. So Jacobian is this here. The very exact inner decimals. Yeah, how your Jacobian there. This is 8. 18.5 negative is negative 16, negative 16. Yeah, so we'll have your Jacobian there. Then you can now proceed with the other part, which is you know. Yeah, so it's not a difficult one. If it pleases you, you can follow through and understand. I think it's much simpler to me. I don't know how about you. You can